Hello there and welcome back to another video. It is Premier League preview time and it feels so great to be able to say that once again, since the last time I will have said it will have been about March time. Anyway, let's get straight into this one now. Please bear in mind this is a preview only. There is going to be no video highlights or anything like that before the game and looking at things like that. It is just talking and discussing about the game that is coming up, and the game that we're talking about first is Aston Villa versus Sheffield United. Two teams that have had a season that couldn't be very much more different to each other if they tried. Aston Villa are fighting for their lives out of relegation, trying to make sure that they don't get relegated, and Sheffield United are pushing their way, trying to make sure and secure a Europa League spot as well. We're going to be looking at the previous 6 games form for each team as well, and their form honestly could not be much more different. Sheffield United have got 5 wins and 1 draw out of their previous 6 games, and this is taking into account all competitions as well, not just Premier League. Whereas in the previous six games, Aston Villa had 5 losses and 1 win. Now, Aston Villa, we're going to go from their furthest back game out of the 6 to the closest one that will have just happened in recent memory. So they beat Leicester 2-1 in the Cup. I believe it was the Carabao Cup. They got beat by Bournemouth. They got beat by Spurs. They got beat by Southampton. They got beat in the final by Manchester City of the Cup. It was 2-1. And then in the final game before the break, the pause and the coronavirus break and everything like that, they got beat by Leicester 4-0. It's not a very good run of form. Now, whether this break does Aston Villa any good or not, I am not entirely sure. They've got a couple of injuries listed from the app that I was looking at anyway. I think it was the Forza Sports app. The injuries that they've got listed is Gilbert, who I think is a fullback, Wesley, the striker that they signed this season, and Tom Heaton as well. And Tom Heaton's a brilliant goalkeeper as well. So I imagine that could be a big miss. It may mean that they have to go down the route of having Pepe Reina in goal as well, who didn't cover himself in glory. I'm starting to remember that Leicester game as well, where I think he ran out of the box far too far and just couldn't recover. And as a Liverpool fan myself, it was gutting to see that, because I love Pepe Reina. I've got a soft spot for Pepe Reina, and it was really hard to see that. Now, on the flip side of this, for Sheffield United, their form, as I said before, 5 wins out of 6, 1 draw. We're going to go from back to front. So, they beat Millwall 2-0 in the Cup. They beat Palace 1-0. They beat Bournemouth 2-1. They drew with Brighton 1-1, which was a good result for Brighton, to be fair. They beat Reading in the FA Cup, and then they beat Norwich as well by 1-0. Now, the one thing that you got to say with Sheffield, and it is quite impressive as well, that they haven't had to go through this season by scoring boatloads of goals. They have played pretty much the exact same system that they played when they were in the Championship. They brought it to the Premier League, and they played it against every single team. It didn't matter whether you're top of the league or you're bottom of the league, whatever. They played the exact same style, and I really applaud Chris Wilder for that, because normally you'll get, promoted teams or teams lower in the league will go, oh Christ, we're coming up against a top 6 team here. We've got to maybe change our system and that. No, he did none of that. And I'll never forget when Liverpool came up against Sheffield United, the first time especially, but even the second time, we won the second game 2-0. But the first game where we won 1-0, and it was Gini Wijnaldum, had a really chance flash shot at the goal, and it rolled through Dean Henderson's legs. He tried to catch it, and it rolled through his legs, and it went over the line. That was a lucky game. We probably should have drawn that game as well. Sheffield have been an absolutely brilliant team to watch this season. As someone that isn't a fan of Sheffield, I'm a fan of Liverpool, I'm not a fan of anyone else. They've been really great and refreshing to see that he hasn't changed his approach. He wants his team to play exactly the same, like centre-backs getting involved in attacks and stuff like that. Really, really cool to see. And because of that, so, what they've done this season, I kind of do hope that they're able to, get themselves a Europa League spot and see what they can do, next season in the Europa League and stuff like that as well. For Aston Villa, they've had, out of the 6 previous games they've had, their win was the furthest one away. Since that win, they've had 5 losses in a row. Now, the teams that they've faced, facing Spurs, all right, Spurs aren't the team that they were a couple of seasons ago. That's fair. but even so, they're still a threat. And under Mourinho, they're still going to cause problems. You know, losing to Southampton, all right, you maybe look at that going and go, you maybe should have made, had a bit more of a challenge on that. But on the flip side, Southampton have really started to turn themselves around into the later part of the season anyway. Coming up against City in the final, yeah, that's difficult, and they actually made a good game of it as well. I remember watching that one. I can't remember who scored. Might have been Samatta for Villa, but they made a game of it. They did what they could. I think one of City's goals was fortunate as well. But then getting the 4-0 against Leicester, yeah, it's difficult. Aston Villa are in a difficult position. I think they're one of the teams that are level on points with about 2 other teams near the relegation zone. Maybe some of them are in the relegation zone. It's a difficult time for Aston Villa right now, and they need performances. They need their players to flow, and the games to flow in their way. Like, I don't know what the result was last time Aston Villa played Sheffield United, but for me, if you go just by the form and the fact that Sheffield United don't have any listed injuries that I saw, then please let me know if that's wrong as well. If there are any injuries that I've missed, I'd have researched, but I couldn't find any. If they've got a fully fit squad, a fully available squad, and Sheffield United can sort of hit the ground running, it's kind of got a Sheffield United win all over it. Now, Villa are at home. Obviously, there's no crowds or anything like that, so we don't really know whether home advantage is a thing anymore. You're seeing a little bit, if any of you have watched the Bundesliga or anything like that, home advantage seems to have been taken away, apart from for Bayern Munich. Again, I think it could just come down to the fact that Sheffield United this season have been the better team. You can see that by where they're placed in the table. They've been in the top half of the table for the majority of the season as well. They play very well. They don't, out of all these games, the previous 6 games that Sheffield United have played, I don't think they've conceded more than 1 goal. They haven't. They haven't conceded more than 1 goal. They kept 3 clean sheets as well. They're a very difficult team to score against. When the top teams in the league struggle against a Sheffield United, Aston Villa may find themselves struggling as well. And I kind of do believe that might be how it plays out. The way that Sheffield United play their game against how Villa play their game, they just seem far too defensively frail to come up against a fresh, fit Sheffield United. And for that reason, and also the form and everything like that, and where they both are in the tables, I'm not saying that Aston Villa can't pull off a shock win or a shock draw, whatever. Any point right now would do Aston Villa very, very good. But I think that this game has got a Sheffield United win all over it. I don't think it's going to be a big margin win or anything like that. I think it's going to be the same sort of pattern that you get with Sheffield United. I'm going to go for a 1-0 victory to Sheffield, and I think that's pretty much how it's going to play out. That's just my opinion. Please do let me know what your opinions are as well. They do mean a great deal, and I like having a discussion with you in the comments below as well. Thank you ever so much for watching this video. If you have enjoyed it, please do like it and subscribe if you're new around here. Thank you once again, and I'll catch you later.